All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another session of our Q&A live streams. I am Nakreen. I'm gonna be hosting today. So I have two guests with me. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Louis McLean. No, I'm Patrick Harris. I'm the lead game designer on DVD.
All right.
Yeah, I'm Patrick, Incorrigible Trickster. No, I'm Louis McLean, a gameplay programmer on Dead by Daylight.
All right. So before we start, I just want to say that we took questions from mainly from Twitter and some regional communities as well, and the forums. So that's where we took the questions for this time. We selected questions, and some of them were upvoted a lot. There's some that we are under embargo and we can't answer, so we won't be able to answer today. Or some of them were just plain insults. So, I mean, I guess that, we were talking about it
Yeah,
earlier.
we were discussing maybe doing like a side stream one day where we just read mean comments from ourselves, like celebrities reading mean tweets. But
Yeah.
not today.
Yeah, not today. That's not happening today. No, today. Actually, we have an announcement. So I guess everyone guessed it, but I'm still gonna say it. Mid Chapter is releasing next week, an archive and Lunar New Year events. So yay! Next week is gonna be the patch.
It's going to be super busy next week.
Yep. Another thing that we're doing today, we're doing giveaways during the stream. So today's giveaways are the two first community outfits. So Mr. Puddles and Demon Slayer Fang. So if you're interested into that, wait until I give you the cue and participate in the giveaway. I guess we're gonna hop right away on questions. We're gonna start by one question that we hear a lot lately is about FPS drops when playing Killer on Switch. So, is the team aware about the FPS drops when playing Killer on the Switch?
Yeah, so we are working on these kinds of FPS drops and similar things on all platforms. We've done a lot of things recently that help us by adding metrics, collecting data to get better understanding of what's going on. There's always optimizations coming. Basically, we have to identify what the issues are, and then fixes come out. It's a gradual process. It takes a long time to get exactly where we want to be, but do take a look at basically every release we do. Try to reevaluate and see if things have changed, because there's usually something in pretty much every update.
I think there's a cat in the background. I can see the chat going nuts. Like, McLean's cat! The cat! It's over there. I see it too. I'm excited too.
There's a zoo back there. Sorry.
All right. The second question is about Switch again. So I don't have one person that actually asked the question. We have the collective hive mind of the internet that asked this question. But basically, Switch cross progression when we have started cross progression with Stadia, and we have promised that Switch was the next one over. And I have been okayed to tell you that it is currently going to be early Q2. So what does that mean? That means between April and June. Hopefully more April than June. So that's the answer. Now, knowing that we're going to talk about Switch cross progression, I know that the question is going to be asked about PS4 and Xbox and other platforms. So as we said before, we'd love to have that implemented, but right now at this very moment, we have nothing to announce for this. So I want to be just very clear about that one, sadly. All right, so switching up subject here and going on to maps. Any chance we can get more variation of the backwater swamp? It is so different than the other maps, and it would be great if it got some more love.
Should unmute my mic before I start trying to answer this one. But Yeah, I mean, we hear you guys. Like, you know, we know that you want every map ever to have all the love, and we want to give all of the maps all of the love. We have a lot of love to give maps, but right now we're focusing on reworking existing content. We're not looking at creating entirely new ones, right? So reworks are happening, but don't expect any like brand new swamp maps in the near future. That's not a thing that's on the immediate roadmap.
But it's still going to get the, rework treatment.
Yeah, we're going through all of the maps, right? In a completely arbitrary order determined by a magic 8 ball that we shake up at least once a week. It's done by we have a whole team of people looking, deciding what's next, and at the end of the day, some things happen before others. That's just how it's going to be. So it's going to have a rework treatment, but you're not going to see like a brand new one anytime. I want to be super clear and make sure nobody gets their hopes up and misinterprets this.
As this can be extended to most of the realms as well.
Yeah.
Am I am I asking you a difficult? I'm sorry. That was me asking an extra question on top of it here.
Well, it's it's an interesting subject, and to pull the curtain back just a wee bit, right? Like while I am the lead game designer, I am not the lead level designer. We have people who look after this stuff and decide what comes next and what the nature of the work is going to be. Unfortunately, we can't have literally every lead and every decision maker on the team in a single stream. That would be a neat stream, but the windows would be very small up in the corners, right? And it would be a
Would be a
nightmare
lot of
to.
people.
Yeah, and I think you'd have a lot of issues with trying to moderate that particular interview. But so I'm not necessarily the perfect person to ask for what exactly is going to come back next, which is why I'm kind of going, ah! It means I don't
Yeah, that's
necessarily
fine.
know the answer,
I'm
but we have
I'm
people.
sorry I pushed on that one.
It's all good.
All right. Are there any plans to rework Haddonfield? Because Haddonfield's getting a lot of noises around it.
I mean, yeah, it's getting the same kind of graphical update that everything else is getting, right? Like I said, we're doing all the maps, guys, baby steps, one at a time. I don't know when they're all going to happen. I don't have any dates to hand you, but we're crawling through because we want to increase the visual fidelity and overall presentation of Dead by Daylight across the board. And one of the most important things, one of the most important elements to that is the maps, is how they look and making sure that we update their looks, but without drastically impacting how they play. I say the word drastically because no matter what we do, we're going to impact how they play. And the intention here is to make sure that any impacts that we have are minor or positive, right? Things that we know that we're doing, going, okay, we're losing this little bit of gameplay, but we're going to gain something else somewhere else. And it's always good for everybody to notice that it's really easy for you to notice when you've lost something in a map, and it takes a lot longer to notice when you've gained something in the map. So there are cool things going on, but yeah, Haddonfield's going to see just as much love as the others.
All right, awesome. We're switching up to UI. There was a lot of UI questions. I think I'm going to address them at the end, but we're going to do the specific questions first. There was a question about ultra wide. Sorry, guys. I'm having a little bit of a cat visit, let's say. So will we ever see support for ultra wide aspect ratio? The game currently keeping the same horizontal field of view, making the camera feel zoomed in. Well done.
All we can say at the moment is that it's not in the immediate plan. It's not like it's not something that doesn't matter, but we can't say that it's on the current roadmap.
All right. All right, this one is about the new UI. So in the new UI, killers are giving less hook information than survivor. Why did we do it like that? And are we planning to change it?
Oh man, I have my notes here on this question, and I wrote a small essay, so I'll try to keep this brief for everyone because there's a lot of opinions on it. So just to be clear with everybody, this was done intentionally. This was something that the design team and the UI team talked about quite a bit to try to find the right balance on. We considered giving the full information that the survivors have to the killers, and the concern that we have is that this would encourage tunneling a bit too much, right? As a killer, if you know that that guy is on his last hook and you know it for sure, Z's, because it's in the HUD, that might lean people towards tunneling a bit more, and tunneling's not the most fun. It's a strategy. It's something you can do, and it's something that we want to leave as part of the challenge and the decision making for the killer. The killer, as a killer, we want you to try to remember how many times you've thrown each individual survivor on the hook to make that decision. You might get it wrong, but that's part of the spice of being a killer, right? The flip side is we definitely wanted to make sure we had that information available to the survivors, because we thought of those sorts of situations where your buddy is about to go on a hook and you're thinking, oh, I gotta position myself to go on unhook him, and gets thrown on the hook and dies right away, and you go, oh
It's
man.
it's specifically practical for solo players, I would say, on that
Yeah,
one.
it's super useful for solo players in that regard too. It influences your decision making a lot more, and we didn't like the idea of survivors sort of trying to position themselves or go for an unhook, only to find out that it was pointless, right? That they had been barking up the wrong tree that whole time. So we wanted, definitely from that angle, it makes a lot of sense to have it for the survivors. For the killers, though, we prefer it to be something that's part of the challenge of a killer, right? We still give you that full hook counter to give you an idea of your overall progress, right? Hooking and killing the survivors, kind of the name of the game. I mean, your role is called killer, so that's the focus there, guys. But we did want to give you a little bit more of a way to track your progress towards that goal, but without giving too much specific information that we felt took away from the gameplay challenge and the mental aspect of being a killer, and also didn't encourage those sorts of negative gameplay situations. Like, tunneling's not always fun, right? It has an advantage as a killer to go do it, but we want to make sure that if you do it, it feels like you earned it and not that the HUD just handed you the information on a platter.
All right. Another UI question. Is there going to be a possibility of being able to customize the HUD ourselves, put the widget where we want them on the screen, for example?
I can weigh in on that.
Yeah, go for it,
so
buddy.
Yeah, we've had a lot of people ask us about this, and every time I feel the same way. I'm like, yeah, that sounds really cool. So it's been discussed internally. It's not simple. It's actually a very complicated feature, not only in terms of development but also for testing. So I can't say that it's planned anytime in the near future, but I wouldn't say that we would rule it out. It's a really cool idea.
So that falls under the wish list kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So talking about the UI, we did receive a lot of feedback after PTB or during PTB, if you wish. So the plan here is basically not much has changed for the release, and we're gonna go into this a little bit onto why. But what I'm saying today is that we're gonna look at focused feedback specifically for UI for a few weeks after the release, after everyone, and not just only Steam players on the PTB, had their hands for a little while on the new UI. However, there's one thing we really wanted to address though, and that will be done before the release, is the whole colorblind issue that was with the new UI. So we know that our colorblind player had a lot of difficulty reading the UI, so this is something that we pushed first to fix. Now, why don't we have that much time to change things between the PTB and the release? Maybe Pat, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on, guys. So to pull back the curtain yet again a little bit on development, in case you haven't noticed, fans and players of Dead by Daylight, there's a lot of patches for this game. They come out at a breakneck pace in terms of development. There's, generally speaking, we've got major chapter patches coming out. It's like what, about on average like every 12 weeks, I think. We've got mid-chapter patches coming out between those. We've got hotfixes coming out for those. Generally speaking, 1 to 2 hotfixes per patch. So that's every, you know, like each chapter plus its mid chapter is really 6 different versions of the game that we're putting out. And somehow in between this, we managed to cram in a PTB test. So the honest truth is that there just is not a lot of time between having the PTB go out, uh, gathering all of the information coming from you guys, and then figuring out a way to address it that meets the deadlines. Because keep in
Or
mind, folks.
or even
So,
having these, sorry to cut you, but
yeah, yeah,
even
go for it.
having these discussion around the feedback as well,
Yeah.
that takes time. You're not, it's this is a team that works together. It's not just one
Mhm.
person that decides like, yeah, we're doing this like this and then we're switching this. And so these discussions have to be, held between the designers and the production team and everyone.
Exactly, and
Sorry, I cut you.
no, it's fine. It's an absolutely fantastic point. Like we do collaborate, we do all talk together. We try to figure out what are the solutions, what are the pros and cons of each solution to this problem. Right? Sometimes there's an obvious solution, but it would take 3 weeks of work to get done, and that's just not going to make the cut because we have to implement the solution, we have to test the solution, so we have to find QA time to be able to check that, and we don't work on these patches up until like the day before they go live to you guys. They get locked down a little bit in advance. There's some fun development background stuff that goes on, and rules and processes. Like,
Mm,
you know, we
Maybe
don't.
we should do a stream one day about
Yeah,
like what
we
is
could
the
talk about the whole
development
thing.
process.
Ah,
That would be
yeah, I'd
interesting,
love
I
to
think.
talk about like when do we stop designing new features? When do we stop adding new features? When do we
Yep.
stop doing bug fixes? And like
Hmm.
when does the build have to be locked in and like ready to be certified and sent out? So there's a much smaller window for reacting to changes um, between a PTB and a release, and some people might expect. And the common response I often hear to that is, why do a PTB at all? And the answer, of course, is that it gives us the 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it happens to be advance on all of these issues, so that you'll often see feedback from the PTB incorporated, if not in the release, but in hotfixes that follow up a release at the very least. And
Yep.
essentially, why do it? So we can get those fixes out to you 3 or 4 weeks earlier than we would otherwise.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, any way we can, any avenue we have to gain feedback from you guys, from the players, uh, the sooner is always the better, right? Like we get that information, and yeah, I get it. Like as a player too, I get that it sucks when you see something, a problem in the PTB, and it's not fixed, boom, instantly, right? Uh, but the flip side of it, from our perspective, is once you bring that up, once we hear that feedback, we know about it and we're going to work on doing something about it. The turnaround time is something that is much more complicated and difficult to do, but I promise you that we are listening. And even if it's not addressed for the release coming right after the PTB, I guarantee that the gears are turning, people are talking, and we're trying to figure out how we can get those sorts of fixes or adjustments in your hands as quickly as possible without breaking the rest of the game.
Yep. That's that's another point. All right. So before we hop on to more questions, I do think we had a raffle to do. So we have 10 codes for Mr. Puddles. And to enter the giveaway, you enter Mr. Puddle once in the chat because doing it more than once doesn't help you. And just make sure that your whispers are open because if you win, someone will DM you your prize. So good luck, everyone. And I will tell you when the raffle is closed so you can stop spamming Mr. Puddles. All right. So let's go to one question on accessibility. Are there any plans to change the hook struggle mechanics to avoid having to spam the same key constantly?
I mean, the answer that I have there is like, I get it. Like smashing the same key, I don't like it either. Right? Like it's boring. It's not the most exciting gameplay. We've been looking at a new approach to the struggle phase for a while now, trying to find something that is engaging, that makes you feel like you're actually struggling against, the entity trying to take your life there, but also is an actual improvement in terms of the mechanical buttons you got to press. So I don't have anything concrete to announce like when it's going to happen, but like I said before, the gears are turning. We're looking at this. This is something that is definitely on our list. There is work being done on it. There is active work being done, but when that will be completed and in your hands, I don't have anything concrete I can hand right now.
Yep. All right. Matchmaking question, and this one, we've seen an uptick of complaints about survivor queues lately. Can you address the longer survivor queues during nighttime?
Yeah, oh man, Matt. So just so we're clear with everyone, matchmaking is like a deep love of mine. I have a lot of love and passion for matchmaking, so I will try not to talk too much or too long. Gab, please cut me off. Tell me if I'm rambling incoherently on this front. I will shut up if you tell me to. So yeah, matchmaking throughout the day. Matchmaking in general is really hard and super challenging. But when I say throughout the day, I mean day and night, not just when the sun is up, right? But throughout the day, the biggest limiting factor that we have isn't the system. It's not that the matchmaking system itself is like bad at putting people together at certain times of day, but it's rather that there aren't the right players in the queue. And by that, what I mean is we see this, we have charts that we look at this throughout the day. The ratio of survivors to killers fluctuates. In a perfect world of rainbows and unicorns where we all have lollipops and everyone is happy, there are always 4 survivors in the queue for every killer who's in the queue, right? And that would let us just pump out games constantly. That's not the case though, right? Sometimes there's too many killers and not enough survivors. Sometimes there's too many survivors and not enough killers. And generally speaking, at nighttime in most regions, the number of killer players starts to drop off, and we just have a surplus of survivor players. So you can imagine we have 400 survivors waiting in the queue and no killers. As soon as a killer joins the queue, the system is going, oh yeah, and pairing them up with 4 survivors and throwing them in. And then the actual like limiting factor here is waiting for the next killer to queue up in that
Yeah.
zone.
And as complete opposite, we often see when releases happen and people want to try the new killer, the complete opposite. Like, oh my god, killer
Yeah.
queues are so long. I'm spending 10 minutes in here waiting. Well,
So
that's also a matter of ratio.
exactly, right? Like new killers, all sorts of things can throw off the ratio, right? We have events in, and if there's anything that ever encourages survivors to play with their friends, boom, suddenly we have too many survivors on. It's really interesting.
Some
For
events in the past as well.
Yeah, it's happened, right? So the one thing I will tell you is like this is something that we are constantly monitoring, something we're constantly looking into, figuring out ways to improve the system. Some are big improvements, some are small improvements. We try to have that best bang for the buck, find the cheap little things that we can get out nice and quick for you guys. We're looking. The main thing is to look for ways to. Merge matchmaking pools together instead of separating them out. There's a lot of really interesting, cool background work being done that's very technical, and I won't bore you all with right now. But these are the sorts of things that we're doing because the more people we can get into a matchmaking pool, the less y'all have to wait to find matches.
Yep. All right, we have another matchmaking question. So, with the upcoming skill-based matchmaking system, can you give more information on how the ratings will be determined? Example, what counts as a win, or how does it judge if you're doing good or bad?
That's a fantastic question, and I want to be super clear. I understand exactly why everyone is so curious about this. That said, little hesitant to explain every single detail, and the reason why is because I don't want to change how people are playing the game. I don't want people to start to try to change their play style to manipulate the system. The goal of the system, the goal of the skill-based matchmaking is to have it adapt to the way that you play to try to find you the right matches. So really, I don't want to talk too much about the individual bits and pieces of it, partly because it should just work with the way you play. I don't want you to change the way you play. The flip side is that it's also not something that's set in stone. It's something that we modify a lot and are constantly tweaking in the background and going to continue tweaking going forwards. So it's just like keeping everyone up to date on these constant changes. It's going to be too complicated. It's going to be a lot of signal to noise ratio stuff. To give you a little bit, though, like to try to actually answer the question instead of just dance around it for 10 minutes, the initial version of the skill-based matchmaking was based solely around kills and escapes, just as a starting point, right? It was solely on
Jeez.
kills or escapes. Yeah, it wasn't the best. It wasn't perfect. And so since then, we have continually added more parameters to this, more elements of the game, of the results of the game, to have a better understanding and better way to rate the skill and the performance of each player. And we're continuing to add more of these things
So
all the
we're
time.
saying it's not
Yeah,
based solely on kills and
not.
escapes.
It is not.
You want to repeat that?
Yeah, I will repeat that super clear. It is
It is
not
not.
just kills and escapes, okay? Not. It is not. That we tried it. It was bad. That didn't even go out live to you guys. We knew right away it was bad, so we didn't do that. we've been doing a lot of stuff with the skill-based matchmaking in the background. It's a neat system because we've actually been collecting this data for like a year now, honestly, in various iterations of it, and it just runs in the background. We watch, Big Brother is always watching the games that you play. Not really, not in that much detail, but we're always collecting these stats and we're pumping them into our algorithms to create the skill-based ratings and to figure out if they're actually working correctly or not. The whole goal of these, and again, I'll stop talking after I say this, the whole goal of a good skill-based matchmaking system is it's supposed to predict the outcome of a match before the match happens. And sometimes its prediction is, I don't know, flip a coin. Sometimes that's the prediction, and that's okay. That's okay if the skill-based system goes, I don't know, man. Like if Pat plays against McLean, 50-50, don't know who's gonna win, right? That's fine. It's okay.
I know, but
I know who's
Yeah,
gonna win.
Yeah, I know who's gonna win. Pat, no
it's a
offense,
hypothetical. Yeah, of course Louis gonna crush me. Like, let's be real. But yeah, actually, that's a good point. Is what would actually happen realistically is the system in that case would look at Louis and I and go, oh yeah, Pat's got doesn't have a hope in hell of making it through this match. That's not going to go well. And so the idea is the system predicts ahead of time, and then what we do is we check those predictions off of how accurate they are. So if the system keeps saying Pat should never win that game, but I'm actually winning 9 out of 10 games, well, we know there's something wrong with the system, right? And that's how we tweak these. So we're constantly working on getting this predictive system being more accurate in its predictions. I'll stop talking about matchmaking now.
All right, yes, let's switch to more general questions. This is a question that comes up quite often, but will all killer eventually be getting their own custom chase music? So whoever wants to take it.
Sure, I'll talk. Or otherwise I'm gonna drink so much I'm gonna explode. So we've talked about this a little bit before. We do want to give killers their own chase music when we update them. We basically bundle new music with the gameplay changes that they get. We can't promise that every single killer is going to get new music. It kind of depends on who we're looking at and what the scope of the changes are to them. So we like it. We cannot promise that every killer is getting their own music.
All right. Okay, so this one's a spicy one because we had a Mori change back in December, and now is there a key rework plan after the change to Mori's, and when will it be released? Well, this one is always a question. It's difficult to answer if we don't have a final plan, but go ahead.
We don't usually answer when will it be released. Although I will tease that we actually do have a couple of
we have a couple of teasers today.
We'll get there. So yeah, I'll field this one. The Mori change was a small change. It was a small change. We wanted to reduce the negative perception around the offering, the frustration that it creates. And this was a very, I don't want to say easy, but it was a simple change to make that we could make quickly. We know that keys can be equally frustrating. Key issues happen less frequently than Mori's. This is what we found. Key hatch escapes are actually pretty rare. I know it doesn't feel rare when it happens to you. I know that it can be very frustrating. So they were not being targeted in the same initiative as the Mori. We do see these as separate topics. I know that often in conversation they come up like they're the two sides of the same coin, or they're like connected issues. I don't think they're quite as interconnected as that. They're just two things that often get talked about at the same time. So we do have a plan for keys. These systems are both going to get some bigger changes. More changes coming for Mori, more changes coming for keys. It's still pretty early in that process, so we can't get more precise about it. But it's a larger change than what we did to the Moris. And honestly, I'm pretty excited about it.
I gotta say too, like, we're saying that there's very little escapes with keys. That doesn't mean you don't see keys. I know a lot of people that what they do with key users, so that maybe
Yeah.
it's people don't survive the match ultimately.
Yeah,
if they
I'm not saying
bring
that
a
nobody
key.
brings keys. We were just when we looked at how often do people actually escape en masse with keys, it is actually fairly rare. It was a lot less than like how often does somebody bring a.
I think
know,
I'm not
more-
gonna hide it. I bring Franklin's. I
Yeah.
have no shame to say it.
I
All right.
think the stat on key escapes, like the amount of times that somebody actually opens the hatch with a key and then leaves the match with a key, it's in the single digit percents. I want to say it's like 2 or 3% of games. Like, don't quote me on that. I think I got that stat a couple weeks ago, so my brain is remembering. I remember it was in the single digits. So it is low. But you're right. There are people bringing them and then dying. But that's the number of times it actually happens. So it's not super common. Doesn't mean we don't care. We definitely care.
Okay. That next one's a spicy question. We're gonna do it anyways.
Oh no.
Why can Killer camp, slug, and tunnel it hand match so quickly for survivors? Okay. You guys want me to answer that one? Because I can if you want.
Go for it.
Okay. So obviously, we don't want to remove these choices from the players. Sometime camping is the right call to make if you know that someone's waiting to get the save, for example, or they just run into your face. That happens too. DBD is about game choices. It's choices in the moment, and giving people only a single correct way to play every match would get pretty boring.
Yeah.
Now, it does suck if you get slugged for like a while, or tunneled or camp, but there are many perks against that. So we want to address it because it's been a while since we addressed this question, and that's the answer for now.
Yeah. From a design perspective, I would add to what you just said and say that this isn't what I'm about to say isn't specific to DBD. It's a general statement of multiplayer games in general. So, in fact, I'm stealing this from a lead game designer from a different game that I won't mention, who's much smarter than I am. But his general point that he was making is, if the first 5 minutes of every match that you play is exactly the same, then why are you playing it? Right? There needs to always be a threat of something crazy happening in the game. And yeah, it sucks. Like, it sucks when you're at the butt end of that, like being tunneled and camped and hooked and stuff. That's not like, I get that. I get that it's frustrating when you're in that space, but it's
And now we're addressing, slugging and everything,
Yeah.
but there's also like other ways to go the game go very fast,
Yeah.
So-
Exactly. And the importance is that, like, if we truly removed all of those things, then what would happen is the first 5 minutes of every game, 2 minutes, whatever, would be identical from match to match to match, and that's not fun. That's boring. It's super boring. So there needs to always be a threat of something happening, like the potential for excitement, of craziness happening right from the beginning of the match, and that's what actually deep down keeps you engaged. That said,
Yep.
like, just to be clear, we're always looking at making sure that it's not total garbage, totally unbalanced, but that's the nature of the beast. You're always going to end up having the threat, the possibility, and occasionally the occurrence of something that seems frustrating like that, you'll have to trust our judgment when we say that the alternative of completely leveling that playing field would be way more boring.
Yep. All right. Moving on. So, will we ever get blood points if someone disconnect before the match starts? So, okay.
Yeah.
Lots of waiting in queue, loading, then getting booted back
Yeah.
with no rewards. Okay, I get it. At first, I was like, "What? Without playing the game?" Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, exactly. No, I can take this one as the resident matchmaking mastermind here. Yeah, disconnect logic and penalties are something that we're always looking to improve. I know I keep saying we're always looking to improve things, but it's the truth. We are constantly looking at all these various systems here. It's important that any changes we make, pardon me, are both beneficial to the overall experience of the game, but also not exploitable by bad actors, right? People who look for this to try to go, oh, if I just do something low effort, I can get a zillion blood points running a script or what have you. We've considered applying, to give you a preview of this, we've considered applying disconnection penalties to people leaving from pre-game lobbies. That's actually, the logic is already in. There's just a switch we could turn it on, but we're not turning it on. It's not getting turned on. Don't make that be the takeaway. It exists, but
Yeah.
we're not
Let's
turning that on.
just
Yeah.
like remove everything that was said in the last 15 seconds. Don't panic. Don't go right
panic.
now to forums to scream
Yeah.
about it. This is
And
not something that's happening.
I have no
Let's
intention
repeat
of
it,
turning that on.
please,
Yeah,
Patrick.
that is not a thing. We are not penalizing people from leaving the pre-game
No.
lobbies yet.
You
No.
just had to stir everybody up, didn't you?
Oh, I love stirring everybody up. I like making your
Like,
guys' job as
I
fun.
know the CM team right now is like, no,
Uh,
why did you do this?
It's not guys. It's not happening. We're not going to penalize people there, right? That's a relic of a bygone era. The reason why you end up in situations where people like disconnect from the beginning of the match like that, there's a lot of them. PC instability, right? The rare and unfortunate case where they crash. Their cat pees on the
Something
router.
burning in the
Yeah,
oven that I forgot, stuff like
right.
that.
I was just reading a news article the other day about a certain PC case that bursts into flames. Maybe your computer lit on fire. Right, these things happen. Um, so yeah, like the answer to the specific question of will we ever get blood points when somebody just quits a game right away? The answer I'm going to give you is maybe, probably not, maybe. I'm much more interested in spending our time and effort trying to fix the underlying issues of why the matchmaking takes so long, why those people are disconnecting before they come in the game, to make it so that you just don't end up waiting in the matchmaking queue and then getting a dud game at the end. That has much more value from a design and a production standpoint than putting in like here's a couple thousand blood points. Like, thanks for waiting.
All right, we're gonna up on
You
the
guys are gonna
next
mute
one.
my mic so I stop answering questions like that now.
Will there ever be an option to save custom perk sets or randomize your perks?
Right. So I'll jump in. So yeah, this is a common request. We definitely hear that. We do have a UI and quality of life improvements list. It's about a mile long. This is definitely on it. Can't make any commitments about a timeline. It has to do with prioritizing all of the various things that we'd like to do to improve the UI. We will keep you posted. It seems like a pretty high value add.
Yep. So not anytime soon, but it's on the list. Any plans for buffing the pig or other weaker killers? Do you have any plans in the work for the older killers in the game?
Yeah, sure. So we have been doing passes on older killers to adjust their performance, take a look at their add-ons, bring them up to standards. So we've been talking about the next 3 killers who are getting adjusted. We've mentioned in the past, but I'll just reiterate it on the stream because I know not everybody catches every single one. So the next pass, the next 3 killers are Freddy, Demogorgon, and Huntress. We are not yet able to tell you what all of the changes are exactly, but
is it in that order or it's in mixed order?
I can't even give you that. Just these are the 3. They're in our sites. More information will be coming on those later. So these are not complete like killer power overhauls. It's not like when the Doctor got a new power, when Freddy got new powers. It's just looking at them, how do they do, adjusting some numbers, adjusting some add-ons, that kind of work. So it's funny that you mentioned the pig. The pig is actually one of the better performing killers overall. That's not to say that there aren't improvements that can be made. Even killers who are doing well could still use some quality
because
of life.
Josh by himself.
Yeah, just Scorpions by himself.
Scorpions just like
killer, right?
gets that thing way up for us. No, but
surprisingly, like even on other platforms, not even at high ranks, the pig, her performance overall is pretty good. We like pig.
All right. So before we hop on to the next questions and eventually some kind of maybe look into future stuff that we didn't announce yet. What? Let's do the next raffle. So again, to make sure that your whispers are open, because if you win, someone will DM you. So type GG in the chat if you want to win Demon Slayer Fang. All right. So good luck, everyone. All right. So the ever coming back question about game modes. Will there ever be other game modes added to DBD? Do we have any plans for this at the moment? So that one's an easy answer.
Yeah, that's an easy answer. The easy answer is we don't have any plans for that right now. It's something we've talked about, something we continue to talk about, but nothing on the pipeline for that right now.
All right. Next question. The lack of changes planned for Objective Obsession was not very well received. Is there any change planned since then?
I don't know if I'm going to link this to any particular reception of anything else that we've said, but we do have something to talk about for Object of Obsession. We wouldn't usually pull something out this early, but because there has been a lot of discussion about the perk, we thought let's try something different and show you guys a work in progress design. So why don't we throw it on up there so we can just have you guys tell us what you think about the idea. It hasn't been programmed, right? This is super early, but like we've talked about this perk, and this is an idea that has survived at least one round of discussion. We thought, you know what, let's go ahead and ask the community.
Just a note on this one. If y'all nice and we can have actual discussions back and forth, feedback discussions and constructive feedback, this might be something that we do more often in the future, where we show you an early design and we ask for feedback. Now, this is very scary for us, because if this comes and it doesn't work and we don't do this design, we don't want to hear it like 6 months down the line, but you said you promised. No. This was a part of a discussion with the community. So this is a test. We're seeing if this works. We're opening the discussion with you guys. And this is it. Louis, do you want to get over like the changes or the proposed changes?
Yeah. So we wanted to keep the idea of a perk that connects you to the killer, that has this sort of like peeking, you see them, they see you kind of gameplay, but maybe it wasn't quite as antagonistic. Survivors can use the current Object of Obsession in a way that is, well, basically they can be very annoying with it. And while it might not be the most powerful perk, it's definitely a frustrating one to see.
It completely destroys stealth killers. It's so sad when you're playing a stealth killer and you're like, oh, hi, dude, you're over there.
Yeah, it can be rough. So what we figured was this is a way to keep that aspect of you seeing them, them seeing you, try to keep the obsession element involved. That's why we added the second power, which reveals you to the killer if you are the obsession. So only one player per match is going to be doing the forced reveal, and it's not a downside. It works with the first ability in that if you reveal yourself to the killer is revealed to you. And it's on a timer, so that rather than doing it whenever you want, both players kind of get a rhythm of when they know that peak is going to come up. So we think this is probably a more fun way to do something similar. And even if you're not the obsession, the first power of seeing the killer when the killer sees you seems pretty strong on its own. So we wanted to know how you guys felt about that.
All right. I think we had something else to show right now.
Yeah. So
talking about
that. So
obsession perks.
when would this change happen? No idea. We were bringing this up a lot earlier than we normally would. Call it an experiment. But we do have a change that's coming up soon. That's done and essentially ready. And let's go ahead and announce it. There's a perk that a lot of people like to talk about called Decisive Strike. So we have a change coming up for that, not in the mid chapter, but in the chapter after that. So not next week, but the next thing that comes out after that is going to be the Decisive Strike change. We've talked about this perk a lot internally. There were a lot of different options we felt to assuage some of the frustrations that people feel about the perk. The direction we went with was disabling the ability if the survivor does actions that advance their objectives, essentially. So it stays available until you've, let's say, done something useful.
So if you're actually getting tunneled, you're going to be able to use DS. If you're aggressively repairing a generator in the vicinity, your DS is gone.
Yeah, and when we made this change, we expect that immediate feedback will include a lot of questions about whether you can still use a locker. And we didn't take that one lightly. There was a lot of discussion about that one. We talked amongst the designers, we talked to some players about this. And we decided that we were going to keep the locker behavior the way it is for now. It's something that you do in a chase. It can kind of force the conclusion of the interaction earlier than it would otherwise. And for like right now, we think it's okay to stay. This is another thing you can give us feedback about if you disagree. We are going to be reading about these perk changes, I think, pretty closely.
Yep. Okay, so let's move on. So this is planned for next chapter patch, right? And not the next one over right now, not the mid chapter.
Correct. It is coming in the chapter, not the mid chapter.
All right. All right, so for the winners for Fang have been poked. So good job and congrats. Let's go to the next question because we're like running late a little bit. So okay, that one. How do you plan to deal with making the community happy with perks and the devs happy with perks at the same time to reduce controversy? I just want to start before you guys take the question by saying you can't ever make everyone happy about everything. Like never. There's too many different people in the world. But knowing that, you guys.
Yeah, I mean, knowing that, right? Perks are at the core of the DVD gameplay experience, and we have no intention to stop making them, no intention to make them safer, like to not rock the boat, or the new perks are exciting for both the players and honestly the developers. We love seeing the creative uses that everybody comes up with that we didn't foresee. Last count, there's something like 160 perks in the game. There's like 150, and it keeps going. Whatever, some number.
You're a DVD dev. Name all perks.
Yeah, name all perks. Yeah, no, thank you. Man, I can't even tell you what I had for dinner last night, let alone name all the perks in this game. I still have to check the wiki when people give me names of perks. When I'm working on a perk, I'll know what it does. But yeah, I check the wiki at McLean. You laugh, but I do. I am but one man. I can only remember so many perk names. But yeah, like there's so many perks in the game, and unexpected interactions between the perks are kind of just part of the fun that will always be hard to deal with. Sometimes a perk is really busted and problematic. The interaction with another perk is really messed up, and we can clearly see, okay, this gives an unfair advantage. But other times the perk is fine. and the metagame of how players approach that perk and how they counter that perk just needs to adjust. Just needs a little time to simmer. You know, we all got to try to figure out this new landscape we live in. So rest assured, everybody, that we pay attention to the reports that are given to the CM team, to everything, all the feedback that comes in. We pay attention to those, the qualitative feedback that we get. We also look at all of the stats that we track, sort of the quantitative feedback, right? And we combine those two things on top with a little bit of secret sauce. The secret sauce being literal combined decades of game design experience amongst our incredibly talented game design team that we have here. And after putting all this in the pot, looking at what you guys say, looking at what the stats say, looking at what our experience tells us to do with these things, we try to determine the right course of action. In addition to all that, we're constantly working on making perk tweaks and adjustments take less time to hit the live version. I know that it's been a long and slow process traditionally, but we're working really hard to try to get the pace of these sorts of adjustments higher so you guys don't need to wait 6, 12 plus months to see that obviously broken perk addressed. We want to try to get these changes out on a much more regular basis.
All right. We have a question about Elodie. Elodie's scream is super loud. Is this something that will get changed?
Yeah, that's.
It is a bug, and this bug will be addressed. What's happening? Okay, that was magical. Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to some other questions then. Is it possible to get a notification during a match of when an archive challenge is completed? Ooh, that would be nice. I'm so ADHD, so would be really cool. But
I mean, the quick answer for that is definitely something that's on the list. I feel you on that one. I'd love it too. Don't have a timeline for when that's getting done.
You know that list we were talking about before with like, the perk, the perk setups or loadouts, saved loadouts. That's in the same list, right? Somewhere in that very long list.
Yeah, exactly. Like we've talked to you guys already a lot about. Yeah, that's on the list. Now imagine the delightful experience of having to sit down and look at this list and decide what order the things go in.
Yeah.
Right. I get this, but I don't get that.
Yeah. It's not necessarily about like how difficult it would be to implement all these things. It's just the amount of things there is to do. So we need to make a choice on what's going first. All right. Will there be a game health chapter anytime soon? So before you guys answer, I'm gonna be very clear. No, not in the way that we're seeing game health chapter, like having a chapter completely for that. However, you guys.
Yeah, we're going to be targeting the mid-chapter patches for larger volume of quality of life and game health changes. So the plan is not to stop making new stuff. The plan is to just ramp up on those quality of life and game health changes, specifically mid chapter. Not that there won't be like more good stuff in chapters 2, but the mid chapters are where the majority of this effort goes.
Okay, sorry, I'm trying to do next step for stream at the same time. All right, another question about daily rituals. So will there be any changes? Example, get more blood point, more variety, or one set for survivor and one for killer per day?
Yeah, I mean, we've recently done a small update. I am, my terrible memory about not remembering dinner last night. I can't remember if this was on a recent patch or on the patch that's about to come out soon. But the change was done recently, at any rate, on our end, to update some daily rituals, mostly around just normalizing the blood point rewards, like lessening the difficulty on some of the really spicy ones, maybe adjusting how many blood points they give. We're continuing to look at the daily rituals, but I would not expect any major overhauls to the system or the ratio of the challenges that you're seeing anytime in the near future. We just got bigger fish to fry, guys. We got bigger things that we want to work on and cooler things we want to get to you.
All right, so I'm looking at the time right now. We're running late, so what I'm gonna do is we're gonna try a lightning round. So Patrick, good luck on that one. I'm sorry. Okay, so lightning round. With the change to survivor animation, can we expect new killer animations?
Sure. So Survivor animations, really good value for the work that's put in. By changing 2 sets of animations, male and female, we can update everything that all survivors see. Whereas for killers, there are many, 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 many killers, so it would take a lot of work to do the same sort of overhaul for everybody. So I wouldn't say to expect any sort of overhaul for all killer animations. However, there are some things specifically that are broken or not working quite right for killers. Like, for example, we've heard you about Hillbilly has some animation problems. That stuff will get fixed.
Yay. Okay, so questions asked often. Fix it boxes. So we're going to invite you to look into our YouTube. We had a whole stream discussing it boxes and hit validation. All right, when can we look forward to a more stable server experience? So with the adjustment to server movement, will killers see a change in being able to 360 swing their weapon and still hit us?
The quick answer to that is we're constantly working on changes to the system to improve it, but they take a lot of time. These are very deep systems to Dead by Daylight. This is not like tweaking just a single number value. These are entire overhauls of underlying systems that often internally result in knock-on issues that then need to get fixed and stabilized. So we are working on things to continue to leverage the dedicated servers to do things like cut down on cheating, to do things like make sure hits and hit detection is more reliable. They're hard. They're very hard. But we are doing them. Even though those are hard and they take a long time, we are doing them, but no timeline for when you're going to see the next steps coming out because of those things.
Early game mechanics. We're receiving like constant questions on on this. When is it coming? What's happening with early game mechanics? Because we had talked about that almost a year ago.
There was a brief mention of it. It has since turned into something different, which we're still working on, and it's not really like a early game phase. It's something different, which we'll talk about later.
All right. So no answer for today on this one, but this is not taking the form of the early game mechanic that a lot of people talked about. Is there a plan to reduce the game's grind? There is a lot of perks in the game and tier 3 of each, and it's ever increasing.
Is there a concrete plan right now? No. But we are looking at it. We're trying to build that plan out and figure out the best way to do it while maintaining the fun of progressing in the game, but without making it feel like you just are trying to climb an unscalable cliff face.
All right. So I think that before we end the stream, I think there was something in chat I've seen about
once or
light
twice.
Point of view, maybe once or twice.
Yeah. So let's go ahead. We can answer this one. Yes, there were changes made for the Blight's first-person animations and the camera point of view to make him essentially feel taller and have a proper point of view like other characters.
I see the Blight hypers.
Yeah, this change is not in the mid-chapter. It's in the chapter that's going to be following it.
Yep. So yes, change to Blight point of view. I think we had another fix for a killer coming up as well. At fix 1, McLean. We're good.
Yes. Sorry. I swear the brain is leaking out of my ears at this point. So we talked about Legion. There was a bit of a snafu with Legion after the last release, and he had lost a visual effect during Frenzy that made it feel like he was a lot slower all the time. We fixed the visual effect. When you're running around with Frenzy, he always was the same speed, but he was missing some FOV stuff. That got fixed, but then after the fix, people still thought there was something a little bit wrong with him. We identified the issue. It was acceleration during the Frenzy attack. Specifically, that has been fixed, and that is coming not in the release, but in the first follow-up patch. We sometimes call them hotfix patches or follow-up patches or bug fix patches. That'll be coming in a follow-up patch to the mid-chapter. So before the chapter, after the mid-chapter, there's a fix for Legion's Frenzy Swing.
Awesome.
That one took a while to track down. That was a hard one.
It was a little bit subtle.
But this is because of the community, because everyone was like, but it doesn't feel the same, something's wrong. So we kept at it and we kept
Absolutely.
Looping.
You guys really helped us out with that one.
Yep.
All right. Okay, folks. That's gonna have to be the end of the stream right now. We had a couple more questions, but we're gonna try to make a written Q&A with all these questions and drop that in the forums. Just news and announcement for next week. So mid-chapter is dropping next week with Archive and Lunar New Year event. In the meantime, we are going to raid Spooky Loops. So if you guys want to stick around and meet one of our Fog Whisperers, enjoy the rest of your day, I guess. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you to the mods. Thank you for everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.